Hi, it's Steve. Today we'd like to show you how to change a drain valve on your front load washer. It's a really easy job. Let me show you how we do it. Now to do this repair, we will need to access through both the front and the rear of the washer. So we'll need to pull it forward, disconnect the drain hose and the inlet fill hoses, as well as remove the plug from the socket. Now that we've disconnected the inlet fill hoses, the drain hose, and the power, we're now ready to begin our repair. So we'll start by removing that console. It's held in place with some number 20 Torx screws, one on either side of the door opening and two more through the face. And there may be a little plastic cover over those two screws through the face. You'll need a small flat blade screwdriver to pry that cover off. Then we can remove those screws. And just lift up on that console, pull it slightly forward. That one will disengage it from the cabinet, and we can tilt that out of the way. Now our next step will be to remove the door. So we'll begin by removing the 4 screws that secure that cover over the hinge area. You'll also need to support the weight of that door so that it doesn't drop out on you. Again, these are number 20 Torx head screws. So we'll begin by removing 2 of them, one on the top and one on the bottom. And then while supporting that door, remove the remaining screws. Just lift the cover out of the way, and we'll just pivot that door slightly and roll it right off of the hinge. Now we'll set this aside. Now our next step is to remove the 2 screws that secure that hinge to the cabinet. They are a number 25 Torx screw. Then making sure that we keep those plastic inserts installed on that hinge, we'll just lift up on it slightly and pull it away from the cabinet. Now next we'll remove the spring clamp that secures that door bellows to the front shroud. So using a flat blade screwdriver, just go down into about the 6 o'clock position, tuck the blade in underneath, locate that spring, and then peel that wire out. We'll just set that aside. Then you can disengage that door bellows from the shroud and just tuck it inside. Now next we'll remove 2 screws over on the right hand side that secure the door lock and switch assembly. Then we're just going to lift up on that shroud and disengage a little plastic tab that secures it at the bottom. So just tilt it out slightly, lift up on it. Those are the tabs on the bottom, and we'll set that aside. Now next we'll remove this decorative panel on the bottom. You should be able to grasp either side of it and just pull straight out on it. There are a series of plastic studs that fit into little rubber grommets to hold it to that front panel. So if we pull straight out on it, we should be able to remove it without doing any damage. And we'll set that aside. We can now see that we have an access door where that drain pump is. There'll be a small hole down around the 5 o'clock position on that. Just take a small flat blade screwdriver, put it in that opening, and rotate that door till that hole is in about 6 o'clock position, and you can lift it out. Now you could attempt to remove that pump reaching through this opening, but it's very tight in there. You need to get a clamp off of the side of that, plus the drain hose off the top, and the wire harness connector, and there's a fairly sharp edge on here, plus the tight confines. We suggest that you go the next step and remove that front panel completely. Now to do so, there are 2 screws right on the very bottom that are hidden. You'll need to remove those next, and again, they're a number 20 Torx screw. The 2 screws that are located in the center under the front panel are fairly snug to get at. They do need to be removed before you can remove that front panel. Now with those 2 screws removed, we'll take 2 more out that are located on the sides at the bottom. And then lastly, 2 more at the very top. You may also want to disengage that door lock assembly from the front panel. So just slide it towards the center until it comes free, and then just let it hang by the harness. Now there are some keyhole slots on that cabinet that some tabs fit into, so we'll need to lift up sharply on both sides of that front panel, raise it up a 1/4 of an inch or so that it will be released. So get a good grip on it. And pull up sharply. Disengage those tabs. You can see there are 3 along either side that line up with those keyhole slots. And then we'll set that front panel aside. We now have access to that drain pump. So we'll next remove the clamp that goes on the hose that comes from the outer tub. We'll pull the drain hose off of the top of the drain pump and remove the wire harness at the back. Now that we have full access to that drain pump, our next step will be to remove this clamp that goes to the inlet of the pump. And just slide it back onto the hose. There will be some water in this area, so you'll want something to collect that. And pull the hose off and just set it aside. Next, we'll reach in and pull the drain hose out of the outlet. It's just a friction fit, so a little bit of a twist while pulling upward on it. You'll see that there's an O-ring on there to hold it in place. Now, to release that pump from the base of the machine, you will need to be able to reach in underneath of it, either with your hand or with a flat blade screwdriver, and release the 4 mounting tabs. You could also tilt the washer back or on one side to access those, but if you can elevate it enough, you typically could reach in, locate each of those 4 tabs, and then just push them up into the opening as you're pushing back on that pump. Now, once we've pushed all of those back and out of the way, we can then pull that pump forward enough that you can access the wire harness connector at the back. You want to depress that locking tab and slide the harness off, and then we can pull the pump completely out and discard it. So we'll take the new pump, slide it into the opening. We'll take our wire harness connector, line that up. Make sure the locking tab engages. Then we'll position those 4 rubber feet over the keyhole openings on the base of the washer. We need to make sure that we have all 4 of them sitting firmly in their openings. And then while pressing down on it, we'll pull that pump forward. Just wiggle it side to side till we make sure that all 4 of them have engaged. Once those are locked in place, we can reconnect the hoses. Now, when reconnecting the outlet drain hose, we'll want to just moisten that O-ring before we insert it into the pump. So just line it up with the outlet on the pump. And press it in firmly, make sure that little square protrusion on the hose lines up with the opening on the pump. We'll then connect the sump to pump hose. Line that up on the inlet to the pump, and you'll note that there is a notch on the top of that that will line up with a spine across the top of that pump. Once we have it fully inserted, we'll move the clamp into place. Now, if your model had the little drain hose on it, you'll know where to reinstall this one. The replacement pump comes with one on it. If your original did not, we're simply going to make sure that that plug is in the end of that drain hose, and then clip it into this little notch on the right-hand side. That way, if you need to drain that pump out, clean your filter, you simply pull that little hose out, pop the plug off the end of it, and that will drain whatever water is in the pump before you remove the filter. Make sure that that filter is tightened in place. And now we're ready to put our front panel back on. Now, when reinstalling that front panel, I want to make sure that we line up those 3 tabs with the keyhole slots on either side of the cabinet. So we'll fit the bottom in first. Raise it up enough that those will fit into the openings, and then just press downward on it, and that should lock it in place. We'll now secure it with the 2 screws at the top and the 4 screws at the bottom. Now, if you have difficulty accessing those 2 screws at the very bottom, you can either tilt that machine back on its back or on its side so that you get a better view of them. Next, we can install that access cover. Just locate that tab in the opening at the very bottom. And then just rotate it slightly to lock it in place. Now, next we can put that decorative trim on the bottom, line up the posts with the corresponding holes, and then press it into place. Now, next we'll put the door lock assembly back in place, line up that little tab with those slots so that it slides into place and will stay there. Note that those little protrusions will grab hold of the metal there and hold it in place. The screw hole should line up. So just make sure that those little plastic tabs fit on the front side of that cabinet, will slide into place, and that'll hold that door lock assembly while we put the shroud in next. Now, when installing that shroud, make sure that these 2 tabs go down in behind the front panel. And next we'll install the 2 screws into the door lock assembly to hold that in place. And next we'll reinstall the hinge. So take that assembly, take note of the hooks. They'll be pointing downward. So we'll line those up in those rectangular holes. Make sure both top and bottom engage, and it should slide down so that the 2 screw holes line up. We'll then install those number 25 Torx head screws. Make sure those are tightened securely. Now next, if you wish, we can put that door bellows back in place. We have a little more room with the door removed to do this installation. Now, when installing that bellows, make sure it's pulled all the way through first, then just fold it over take note of the shape of that bellows to make sure that we hook that over those tabs all the way around that shroud. Now when that's properly positioned, it should be laying flush against the shroud all the way around. And if you wish, you can just moisten that little groove that the wire band clamp will fit into. That may help it slide a little easier. So we'll take that clamp and we're going to position the spring in about the 6 o'clock position on the bottom here. Hook that wire into that V groove around as far as it will go. And using a pair of needle nose pliers, we're just going to grasp the hook on the end of the wire, not the spring, but on the wire itself. And then we're going to stretch that spring. That will allow us enough extra room that we can pull that wire the rest of the way around. Just inspect that. Make sure that wire dropped into that groove and that everything is sitting flush. And now we're ready to reinstall the door. Now when reinstalling that door, make sure that the top inserts on those hinge pins are lined up the same way. Then we're going to tuck that door in behind the hinge. Make sure it fits into that slotted opening, and then we'll keep some pressure on the door, pushing it into the hinge. We'll then take the cover, position that in place. It should lay flush. Then we'll install a couple of screws, one on the top and one on the bottom. That'll hold the door until we can put the 2 remaining screws in. Then just check and make sure that it lines up properly with the door latch, and then we'll go ahead and put the console back on. Now when installing the console, we need to make sure that these tabs across the back engage the lower side of that main top. Now to do that, and we also need to make sure that we drop the control board housing down into that opening first. So I'll fit it in and tilt it up slightly. Make sure that those tabs all engage across the back. And then it should lay flush on both sides. Make sure the 2 screw holes line up, and then we can install those. Then install the 2 across the front. And the plastic caps. And now we're ready to push the washer back into place. We're now ready to reconnect the inlet fill hoses, reconnect the power, and our repair is complete.